to places. Okay. I am back. The technological extravaganza over here. So again, welcome to Soul Cafe, and inspired by a class we had this morning. The topic is all rounder. This is inner fitness. So we're going to look at this idea of all rounder from a physical fitness perspective and see how it might apply or what it has to do with spirituality. But before we get into all of that, we're going to take a moment and have a little bit of reflection. Seated comfortably. And again, if I want to experiment, I can have the eyes also comfortably open. And I take that moment, I might need to bring my attention really fully into the moment. Very aware of being seated here now, in this space, at this time. And seeing how easy it is for my mind to be pulled to other moments in the past or future, to things I think I need to do, or just racing. That my mind needs a little bit of time to become quiet and focused. And once it does, I'm able to concentrate, guide my attention to focus on what really matters, to become reflective. It's the feeling that I'm withdrawing deeper into my inner world, not so much living on the surface, but going into a quiet space inside to reconnect to the point of it all. Why am I racing around during the day? The feeling of going to the basics, the foundation. And it always brings me back to the same place. The self. The state of the self. The possibility that quality of life isn't so dependent on what's going on outside or around me, as much as it depends on what's going on inside of me. These quiet, reflective moments allow me to check in, see what's happening inside, and if I need, to make adjustments, to let go of any baggage so I can realign with my core values, with what really matters, realign with the point. It's always a refreshing moment, a recharging moment, as if my energy is being lifted because I'm realigning with what I love, what I value in myself. Om Shanti. So welcome again to our inner fitness. And again, I really love when it comes to physical fitness. So again, the concept here is we take a term that we often find in physical fitness and see how it might map or inspire another look at spiritual fitness or well-being. And this idea of all-rounder is so interesting in the fitness world. I know growing up, I always really was, found myself in what we call track and field or athletics. And within that, I always was intrigued by the decathletes, those one that did multiple sports. I just found it incredible. Like, to me, they were a true athlete. To be able
what
to
they're called, Jurgen?
decathletes. So
Okay.
they do 10 sports. When they, we're used to triathletes, you've probably heard of, where they
Athletes, yeah.
swim and they cycle and they run. So that's 3 sports. But then we have decathletes that do 10 sports. And when we go to a more perhaps common environment, just the fitness, the gym, and what we will often see is participants kind of start to gravitate towards a certain kind of activity. So we've got those participants who like the mind-body classes, the yoga, the Pilates, and that's really all they do. We've got some participants who just cycle, just do the indoor cycling. That's all they do. We've got some participants who like the choreography or dance inspired classes, and that's all they do. And we've got some who like the interval training boot camp classes. And then there's some who just like to power lift, and that's all they do. And I always found this idea, first off, it never felt great in this body to just become that focused on one thing. If I'm cycling all the time, eventually my body starts to feel like it's curling up into a hunched over ball. It's like screaming, open me up. It's screaming for a yoga class or something, So the body wasn't really built, it's a bit like nutrition. It's not really advised that I keep eating the same thing 3 times a day. It's really not recommended. The body likes variety in terms of nutrition. The body likes variety in terms of movement, and science is more and more supporting that. And mentally, variety is beautiful because it helps to stave off boredom, if you will. It might mean going a little bit out of my comfort zone, and that might be what holds souls back. But I've always enjoyed really mixing it up. And what I noticed, especially in dance, it was a really interesting phenomena, is that the closer one got to the basics, in this case of movement, it could be in voice or musical instrument, but the more one got to the basics, the wider the amount of variety they could master. So ballet focuses so much on the literacy or basics of movement. It is so alignment driven. It's crazy. So what we start to notice is you take these dancers who were trained in so-called ballet, lots of alignment, and you could throw any kind of chord. Like suddenly you say, okay, do a handstand here. And they're like, okay. And they may never have done one before in their life, but they pop up into a handstand. And it's like, what's going on? Do an athletic jump over here. Like, okay, and off they go into this athletic jump. And what we started to notice is that when one mastered the basics, they could really do a variety. They had incredible diversity in terms of what they could do. And I found it such a powerful, in fact, they enjoyed that. And you can think of the example of cooking. If I understand the basics of cooking, then I can go into the kitchen and you can kind of throw anything at me and I will be able probably to do it. So there seems to be a connection between all-rounder, this ability to do a variety of things, and this is the physical example, and mastering the foundation or the basics. And this definitely applies when it comes to spirituality. So, of course, the next question has to do a little bit with how one understands spirituality. But taking that into account, let's see where we go. When we talk about being an all-rounder spiritually, what does that mean to you? Obviously, this means, what does spirituality mean to you, period? But being an all-rounder, spiritually speaking, we know what an all-rounder physically speaking is, that, I can master all of these different disciplines. But what does it mean to be an all-rounder spiritually? What does that mean? And I do have my eye on Instagram and YouTube. If you want to chat and send a response through chat, you're welcome. But I have Hema there as well. Is there anything you want to share, Hema? What does it mean to be an all-rounder spiritually?
So to me, to be an all-rounder, first of all, as you said, I need to understand the basic principle, the very fundamental. And the fundamental is, who am I? And what am I doing, right? So if I have an awareness that I am a spirit, I am a soul, I am a driver, and this is the instrument, and I'm driving them. I am the one who make all the organs work, right? So for example, so if any task, if I'm given, then in that case, with that basic principle, I can do anything. So no job would be small for me. No job would be big for me, because I know that I'm a spirit and I can do whatever I think I want to do. So this is the fundamental understanding that who am I and what am I doing and what I can do, what I cannot do. So then it becomes more like unlimited, right? Because if I'm a spirit, there is no limit to that. So if I put my head and mind into it, I could achieve and do anything. That's what my understanding. Because even if you want me to give you the real life example, when I came to this country 20 years back, I did not know anyone here. I just came with 2 bags. I did not know the country. I did not know the culture. I did not know what would be how much they're going to recognize my educational background and my work experience and all. But I have a very internal drive that I really want to settle down here, and I really want to lead a life with the dignity, right? So that spirit was there, and that's why I am where I am. So it's my life experience that, we can do anything as long as you stick to the basic principle, right? So.
Lovely. Thank you, Hema. So definitely there's the mastering of the basics, and we'll come back to that in a moment. There's really 3 things that we need to master at the basic level when we're talking about spirituality. But, I'm just thinking of the result of mastering the basics. So many examples in this organization, and we especially saw it in the beginning years, because the first students, the first handful of students that had to establish this organization, they really had to do everything. So some of them came from wealthy families, some from poor, so they had some experiences in their life based on the household they were coming from. But what they were going to have to do once they came into this, because they're starting from really the foundation of beginning an organization. So on a very practical level, they had to build accommodations. They had to drive and fix cars. They had to do that. They had to cook. They had to do all the cooking for not just, 5 or 6, we're talking hundreds. So they had to cook on bulk level. They had to do administrative things, communication. They had to deliver lectures eventually, at first to the walls, eventually to a handful, and now to tens of thousands. Were they trained in any of this? No. We always, for us, we go to different schools or, different educational programs to develop these skills. They had zero training, but they had spiritual literacy. They had a foundation in the basics. And it's really interesting. One of the early classes I remember listening to was by the one who is now the spiritual head of the Brahma Kumaris, Daddy Ratamohini. It was one of the early classes I remember recordings, and it's so early. It was actually on tape cassette. So that's going to tell you how early it was. It was on a tape cassette. And I had a car that could play a tape cassette. So that tells you how long ago it was. And she was just sharing her experience. It was really amazing hearing her because she was talking about the types of tasks they had to perform at that point. The organization is international. And so they basically are, delivering administration to a multinational corporation is what's going on. An international organization with lots of cultures, languages, ways of life, students around the world. And when you're dealing with that variety of people, there's a number of things that can emerge, issues that can emerge, different laws for different lands, etc. She was talking about how they had zero administrative training, no worldly many of them actually by worldly terms would be considered high school dropouts. The senior students, the spiritual heads of the organization, many of them came as very young and did not complete school. Daddy Genki, I think she only got a few years of school. So how did they develop this incredible capacity as international administrators, people management, handling of massive inventory? You're talking not just, literature, but just like food stocks. I mean, just incredibly high volume of resources that they're having to manage. And what she was sharing in the class, she kept repeating, Daddy Ratamohini, was this stage that she called Shiv Shakti, and we'll come back to that, but this very powerful spiritual stage. That's their entire training, was this powerful spiritual stage. So the three things that are the foundation of really being able to do anything from that spiritual stage, whether it's, okay, you have to go clean the washrooms, or you have to go deliver a lecture to 10,000 people, or you have to go and, cook a meal for 100. This is their life. And no problem, no training and no problem. And the first thing, which Hema already spoke to, is spiritual awareness. This is the first thing that I need to master. And why do I need to master that? So spiritual awareness is understanding that I am the being inside this body, that I am the life, the soul, the spirit inside this body. I, the soul, am making this body go. I'm like the battery in the toy. If you remove me from the body will fall down and become lifeless, because I am the life in this body, I, the soul. So I want to really master that awareness. And sometimes we use the imagery of I am a tiny point of light, and I'm seated in the center of the forehead. So that's the imagery we might use because we need a focus. The experience I actually am trying to have is to unlock the capacities of the self, my spiritual capacities, unlock what it means to say, I am a soul. So it's not just I imagine a point of light in the center of my forehead, because that's not really accurate. I am that point of light and this body. I have to imagine this body wrapped around me, right? That's the reference. But also, what begins to happen as I detach from a physical sense of self and move into that spiritual sense of self is I gain access. It's like the key, we call it the key to unlock the capacities of the soul. We get glimpses of those capacities and they don't seem controlled. They seem to happen in a haphazard way. We get glimpses, we call it random acts of kindness, or we say moments of human greatness, the greatness of the human spirit. They're very random and few and far between because we just happen to activate. We might be in a state where we have to let go, and it's at that moment those capacities are available. But to have them available constantly, to use that key, I am a spiritual being, and to go into the kinesthetic experience of that, which involves an amazing amount of letting go. Through that letting go, my spiritual capacities are liberated, which include peace, lightness, clarity, all of these different virtues, and even inner wisdom is liberated the moment I genuinely experience myself to be a soul. So that's the first point we want to master. The second point, or the second basic, is this idea as a soul, I have an eternal connection to the Supreme Soul. So when I think I'm the body, I feel that's my mother, that's my father, those are my siblings. I have all of these different relationships or people I define myself relative to. That's what relationship means, who I am in relation to other people. So when I think I'm the body, I have what we call bodily relations or physical relations. But when I think I'm a soul, it completely reframes everything. Now those people I thought was my mother, my father, my sibling, they're now fellow souls, or we sometimes use the word brothers. But more interesting is that I open up, activate my relationship to the Supreme Soul. And this is very important because although many of us think about God, some of us don't think about him at all and feel it's irrelevant, and that's fine too. But we think, for those who do, it's generally a one-way conversation. You know, it might be praying to God, crying out to God. Often it's ordering God around, telling God, do this, do that, make this happen, make that happen. It's a one-way conversation. But when I actually activate, awaken in a real way, my relationship to that being by virtue of experiencing myself to be a soul, it's awakened, that relationship. It becomes a two-way dialogue, not just sending things up like a requisition list, but now I'm able to receive, not the things I've been asking to, because those actually aren't going to be useful, but I'm able to receive power from that being, a very special form of power. Some call it soft power, spiritual power. It's a benevolent power. This capacity for benevolence starts to download into me. It's very benevolent power. And that also liberates me from a habit, almost an addiction, that was actually destroying my capacities. If we think in a physical way, we can have someone who's extremely gifted, but if they have an addiction to any kind of substance, that addiction actually will compromise their skills. You know, they can be a beautiful musician, but if they have some substance addiction going on, it can actually compromise their abilities and definitely be debilitating to their sense of self. So similarly, we kind of developed a lot of attachments and addictions and basically desires, and they are shutting down our capacities, believe it or not. When I'm starting to receive from that being, that very benevolent power starting to fill me up, it actually addresses those addictions, starts to melt them, neutralize them, also helping my capacities to come back online. This is what the term Shiv Shakti is, that Daddy Rata Mohini was referring to, is getting power, this very beautiful, soft power that's almost like humanity, this power that we receive, rather than us sending these orders up, get me a car, get me a job. It's like, there's only one thing I should want to get. And it's that beautiful, benevolent power. We call it the power of purity. It actually changes our heart and it liberates our greatness as spirits. So it's beautiful to get this power to receive, not a one way. So that's the second basic that we need to master for spiritual literacy. And the third, which I especially enjoy, I noticed for myself, and you might have noticed for yourself, that I can be doing a task. You know, I'm remembering one in particular, I avoided the computer as long as I could. I avoided it, even though I was involved in graphic design, I avoided it. If I had clients, I explained to them, look, I don't use the computer. And, you know, if they could tolerate that, they said, okay, but what that meant is there'd be times if I was making posters, I'm making them all by hand, might be 20, all the text, everything by hand, over and over and over again. That's a very time-consuming, sometimes monotonous task. You know, so I'd be on poster number 12 and thinking, oh my gosh, how am I going to make it? Like, I've got to do 8 more. And, you know, it's like all the text, everything done by hand over and over. You know, it's difficult, but we're so used to now printed that I might be difficult to appreciate. It's a bit like a monk, you know, a scribe doing manuscripts, those special illuminated letters over and over and over. And the only thing that would ever get me through was love. I would just say, but I love doing this. And the moment I felt that, it was like it unlocks so much, you know, and like our head can be our worst enemy or our best friend. If I'm doing something, I keep saying, oh, this is so hard. And it's, you know, or even if you give someone, I had a client one day, it was really fascinating. I experiment with this because I enjoy doing it so much. You know, I'll have clients and I can tell they have the capacity. You know, we ask them to do a handstand against the wall. I wouldn't ask them to do it if I didn't think they had the capacity, the core to do it. But we ask them to do it because we know they can. And they look at me like I'm mad and they say, no, I can't do it. I can't go upside down. No. And you can tell it's all in here. I said, well, do you want? She said, yeah, no. They say, I've always been interested in doing a handstand. I want to do a handstand. Okay, then, but I just don't know. It feels so weird. I'm not sure. And you can feel it's all in here. And I just keep saying, but you want to. Yes, you would like to. You'd love to be able to master. I said, yeah, no, I want to. And so off they go. And you can just see as they, you know, you give them tips and cues, we can see it's all going on in here. And even they're doing it, they keep saying, but no, I can't do it. Even as they're trying, they're saying, I can't do it. Saying, no, you actually can. I wouldn't ask you if you couldn't, if you didn't have the capacity. And just remember that you very much want to do it. You actually are very interested in doing it. So lots of cues to help address the fear factor, because it's only in their head that they are shutting themselves down. So what we're doing is putting a lot of pure love really into their head. And lo and behold, up they go, they're in their handstand. So love is the third thing that we need to master in spirituality. There's the spiritual awareness of the self, the authentic connection with the Supreme Soul, the source of this beautiful soft power, and activation, the unlocking of our heart, love. Where there is love, it's remarkable what one can do. The impossible becomes possible where there is all 3 of these elements, including that love. So very often if I find I'm not certain about something, but I love to do this. It doesn't matter. I mean, the only thing that's shutting us down most of the time in doing these things is ego, which is the antithesis of love. It's the one that's saying, I can't do it. There's one class that we teach, which is very dance-based, very dance-based. And we very often, there's a group in the room and they're very, very amazing to be there. And we often will see there's a large window at the back of the studio, so people can look in and watch if they want. And we'll often see people standing on the other side of the window, looking in, almost with a longing, not a judging. You can almost feel they want to be in that room. It's got great music and we all look like kids having fun. They want to be in that room, and we'll even invite them. They'll say, no, I can't. I said, well, why? And usually it's, oh, I can't dance. I'm like, actually, everyone can dance. Everyone. Now, what's going on is ego saying, I can't maybe dance like that, but everyone can dance. And they always say, I'm going to look stupid. Trust me, if anyone looks stupid, it's usually me. I do not mind. So the only requirement to come into that room is you have to leave ego at the door and let your love of movement, of music, bring you into the room. Everyone has so many capacities. We can sing, we can dance, we can draw, we can interact in a positive way, we can handle complicated tasks, we can communicate with others, whether it's a small group or a large group. We can do it when we are talking about something we're passionate about. It's so easy. So I'll end with a little experience I had one year. I remember this, and perhaps I've spoken to it before, but it was at the spiritual headquarters of the Brahma Kumaris in Mount Abu. And it was a welcome session for other members, other students of the organization from around the world. And there had been a planning committee involved in organizing this welcome session for many months leading up to it. And although I wasn't really on the planning committee, they did contact me and another soul and said, because we're involved a bit in the arts, and they said, can you help us to think about artistically what this might look like? So yeah, we were part of those conversations. And then as we got closer to the event, I have to be honest, I don't actually recall the moment when this was decided, but suddenly, somewhere along the line, they're referring to me as the MC of the event. And again, I don't know when that leap happened because I wasn't supposed to be involved in the implementation. But somebody's saying, yeah, the MC. So as the MC, you'll do this and that, and this will happen. And I'm like, oh, okay, I'm not sure. So we show up in India. Suddenly I'm the MC. The other artistic person was going to stay behind the stage and handle things on that side. And I remember right up to the moment the event is going live, it was not clear what the order of things was going to be because the main players kept changing. One senior would be confirmed and then pull out, and so the order would change, the events. We had no idea. In short, it was going to be a lot of improv in front of a very large group of people. And I remember going into it, with the seniors there, seeing what's going on, taking lead or guidance from you as to what's supposed to happen next. And I remember sitting backstage, and people were still to the last second whispering things in my ear. Oh, this person's going to come. No, they're not going to come. Oh, this is going to happen. You're going to have to do this. And I would just say, okay, sure. Because what I was busy doing actually was going inside and fortifying those three basics. Going deeply into the experience of being a soul, because that would give me the faith that whatever I was asked to do in that consciousness, I would have access to that capacity. I was also very much linking to the Supreme Soul, really the experience of I am your instrument, you are in charge, you're going to have to give the power to do the right thing at the right time. You're going to have to slap me upside the head if necessary and really guide me. Really handing the power, the mastery, because very often we go into things and we want to control them. There was no option to control anything. That's our concept of power, of course. is to control. But there was no option to control anything because everything was a free-for-all. We didn't know what was going to happen when. So it was this complete letting go, which oddly enough is the most powerful state you can be in. You know, think about the tennis player who's kind of really loose while they're waiting for the serve, right? They're bobbing, they're really loose, they gotta stay loose, they gotta stay. If they tighten up, it's not gonna go well, they gotta stay. You see them bopping up and down, staying really loose so that wherever that serve comes, they're free to respond, to move. So getting rigid, tight, controlling is actually a sign of weakness. Being free, easy, light is a sign of strength, power. So really wanting to just receive that soft power so I can stay very light, very easy, and just that sense of being an instrument, really taking that guidance, that sensitivity to signals. And the big one, the third one, because, you know, ego is so active at those moments. You're going to go in front of these people. You're going to look like the idiot. The seniors are watching. They're going to say you don't know what you're doing. I mean, you're going to let the team down. There's a lot of interesting thoughts that could go on. And they're all debilitating and exhausting and not interesting at all. So I went to the one thought that I always find feels wonderful. But I love this. I love those souls that are sitting out there. They're like family to me. All these beautiful souls from around the world, nothing but love. I love the seniors. I love programs like this. I love the team I'm working. There was just focusing so much on love. Literally floods ego out of the picture. And the moment came to go on stage, go live. They kind of pushed me out there. And it was an absolute wonder how the next 2 hours unfolded. I didn't know what was going to happen from moment to moment, but literally carried by that love, carried by that soft power, and carried by that self-respect, soul consciousness. It was a very interesting experience. And we were asked to do a variety of things. There was one moment where we're dancing, another moment where we're reading something, another moment where we're introducing people, another moment where we're interviewing, all sorts of things that we had to do. And I wouldn't say I'm, really adept in any one of those, but it's just when there's those three basic powers at work, it's incredible what the human spirit can do. We become all-rounders. So to really fortify those three basics of spirituality, who I am, which unlocks capacities, who I'm connected to, belong to, that connection to the source of that beautiful, soft, benevolent power. And also, of course, what's most important to me? What do I want? Where do I want to put my energy? Of course, it's love. Just to remind oneself of what they love also brings so much out of us, and in the sense that it takes away those limiting attitudes and thoughts in the self. So I'm going to end the sharing there. Check in on those who might be listening and those who might be, or Hema, and see if there's anything that you would like to share before we go back into reflection.
It's a very powerful realization today. It was a very good thing that you asked me what am I thinking about all-rounder, and it was a really, really touchy my answer. I realized that where are the gaps, because what you are sharing, it's nothing new for us. We've been studying it for many, many years. But I was just thinking, like, why I'm not getting what I'm supposed to get, because you asked me and then I only said, my answer was, who am I? And big disconnect was who I belong to. That was the big disconnect, because in certain situation, when we are in situation where we need help, that time we remember him. But I mean, my awareness is not the right awareness that who I am, but at the same time, I must have awareness who I belong to and what am I supposed to do. So these are three things. It will go hand in hand, then and then. Anyone can be an all-rounder for sure. And even for any type of success, whatever we do, but it was a very powerful realization. Thank you so much that you asked me. And I really realized that how deep Baba is, like how deep. uh, yeah. So,
We should
no,
thank
like,
Daddy Rata Mohini, because she really, when she shared, she used that term again, Shiv Shakti, which means I, the soul, connected to the Supreme Soul. What can we not do?
yes,
It's like having this wonderful being has your back, if you will, and really
right.
amplifies the capacities of the soul. It's a very beautiful partnership. We have all sorts of ideas about God, and we're not here to convince you of anything else, but just really to share the experience. And also, I think what we, Emma and myself, as students of the organization, what we have witnessed. Again, you could take any one of those senior students and make a movie out of their life. It's absolutely beyond remarkable. If I think about any one of them, they start as these young girls from small towns or villages, mostly uneducated, quite sheltered from worldly life. And you watch over the years through this relationship with God, what is created, it's just incredible what happens at the end of the journey. We call it a university, so there is this education and this development, this growth of the soul. But it's just remarkable what you see at the end of the journey, the capacities that they develop in terms of being a leader on the world stage. Many people go to university, higher education to get training to that degree. I think even Daddy Jenki used to be able to look at, say, a financial spreadsheet and find the errors. She's not an accountant. How is this possible? Right? But she has such a powerful connection with those three things: who she is, her connection to the Supreme Soul, to God, and this incredible love, this generous, broad heart, this incredible love. And that makes one so accurate, and they would have accuracy in the most fascinating ways. The kitchen, having to prepare meals for hundreds, thousands of souls, and they would see the menu every day, and we have souls coming from South India, double the amount of rice you're making. Incredible accuracy. So I just find that so inspiring. It's a little bit different from a worldly approach, but the results were so broad and far reaching and so sweet, because they're sweetened by that soft power and that love and that self-respect. So maybe we'll end with a little bit of reflection. I want to take the time to thank everyone from joining whatever platform. If you see my eyeballs rolling around and I look kind of crazed, I'm just trying to keep track of all the different devices in front of me. But thank you for joining. So let's take a moment to reflect. I go back inside into my inner world. And I bring in front of my mind's eye what looks like a console, a control panel. It's a very simple one. There's 3 buttons on this control panel. One is labeled Self. The second is labeled God. And the third is labeled Love. 3 buttons. Very often we can think about these words, but these magical buttons, if I press them. I can experience the words, experience the thoughts. The buttons activate the feeling. And so I experiment with the hand of my mind. I press the self button and begin to feel that wonderful experience of being at peace with the self. The sense of deep peace, no longer battling the self, criticizing the self, judging the self, blind about the self, deceiving the self, just at peace with the self. I, the soul, I am a being of peace. And within me are so many wonderful innate treasures. I am excited to go inside on a treasure hunt, to experience the specialities of the self. There is the feeling of peace and the feeling of excitement. And then I press the second button, the God button. Not sure what's going to happen here, but I press that button and wait. That being is so subtle, so quiet. Just a tiny invisible point. The experience of their presence comes in so quietly, like a fragrance. That if I am still and trusting, I begin to feel the vibration radiating from that subtle being, as if they've always been interested, caring about me, but I've been otherwise occupied. Their gentleness, their softness wraps around me, especially my wounds, like a blanket. The feeling that God is such a healing soul, healing me back to a healthy, powerful state. And finally, I press the love button, and a flood opens in the heart, as if I've always wanted to just love. But when ego rules, I get hurt, influenced, uncertain, scared. I'm not really myself. But when love floods, ego's washed away, and they are just pure feelings. Anytime I want, I can press these buttons inside, activate those experiences. They make me into an all-rounder, able to be a productive, constructive presence wherever I am. Om Shanti. Again, thank you so much for joining. Our next online event is only on YouTube and on Zoom, but you're welcome to join our YouTube channel. And that's Drop-In Meditations on Tuesdays and Thursdays, 6:30 to 7:30 Calgary time. Our next Instagram event, I'm trying to remember, is interview with a Raj Yogi. And that's Tuesday nights at 7:40 p.m. Calgary time. So again, thank you so much for joining. Enjoy the rest of your day. And until next time, Om Shanti. Sorry, there's so many buttons here to push.